My boyfriend looked at me and said, "It meant nothing. She was just better at a few things than you." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just answered, "Then let her be better at paying your bills too." That night, I accepted the promotion I'd been offered, gave notice on the apartment lease, and let silence say everything I didn't need to. My name is Sienna Vale. I'm 31 years old, and I work in corporate operations for a mid-sized logistics company. It's the kind of job where people expect you to stay calm when numbers shift and disciplined when problems appear. The kind of job where you learn quickly that small details matter, especially the ones other people assume you won't notice. My boyfriend's name is Kai Mercer. He's 28, and for the past 2 years, he'd been trying to build a career as a lifestyle influencer. If you asked him, he'd say he was building a brand. If you asked me, I'd say he was building an image and hoping reality eventually caught up. We'd been together just under 2 years and living together for the last 8 months in a downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and rent that made most people flinch. It looked glamorous from the outside, which was probably why Kai liked it. In practice, though, almost everything that kept that apartment running flowed through me. I paid most of the rent. The lease was handled through my account with the property manager. Utilities, internet, groceries, subscriptions, half the dinners that somehow became my responsibility, those were mine too, or mostly mine. Kai contributed when he could. The problem was that when he could, kept getting smaller. He'd wave his phone in my direction and say, "Brand deals are inconsistent right now. It's a growth phase." I told myself that was normal. Influencing was unpredictable. Income came in waves. Some months were better than others. And Kai was magnetic when he wanted to be. When he walked into a room in a good mood, people noticed. He had that effortless charisma that made strangers laugh and bartenders pour stronger drinks. But when he wasn't in a good mood, living with him felt like living with a disappointed manager who never officially clocked out. Little comments slipped out. Eye rolls when I said the wrong thing. Subtle reminders that I didn't quite fit into the world he imagined for himself. "You're very corporate," he'd say. Not stable, not reliable. Corporate. Rigid. Like those words were somehow interchangeable. Still, I supported him. Financially, emotionally, quietly. I told myself relationships go through phases, and this was one of them. The first real crack started showing a few months earlier. Kai became secretive with his phone. Not in the dramatic, obvious way people usually imagine. It was more irritated secrecy, like my existence anywhere near his screen was a personal inconvenience. If I asked who he was texting, he'd sigh and say, "Why do you need to know?" As if curiosity were a character flaw. Then the comparison started. Always vague, always indirect. Some people just understand ambition better. Other people know how to build visibility. I'd ask who he meant. He'd shrug. No one specific. Just enough to sting. Last Thursday night was when everything started shifting, even though I didn't fully understand it yet. We were sitting in the kitchen. I had an email open on my laptop. An offer letter. Promotion. Better title. Better pay. More responsibility. More hours, too. But that part didn't scare me. It was the kind of step I'd been working toward for years. I felt proud in a quiet way, so I tried to share the moment with him. "Kai," I said, turning the laptop slightly, "I got the promotion offer." He didn't look up. His thumb kept flicking across his phone screen. I waited. A few seconds passed, then 10. Finally, he said, without lifting his eyes, "So does that mean you'll be home even less?" "Not congratulations. Not that's huge. Just inconvenience." "Probably a little," I said. "But it's a big step. It's kind of what I've been working toward." Kai sighed loudly enough for the sound to fill the room. Then he put his phone down and leaned back in his chair. "Sienna," he said, "I just don't know how that fits into where I'm going." I blinked. "What do you mean? You're already very rigid." That word again. I asked what he meant, and he folded his arms, studying me like I'd pitched him a bad marketing strategy. "I'm in a growth phase right now," he said. "Everything in my life needs to align energy-wise. My environment, the people around me, the collaborations." I laughed a little because I thought he had to be joking. He wasn't. "You're very corporate," he continued. "You don't network properly. You don't dress with intention. You don't understand that visibility is currency now." Every sentence sounded strangely polished, like he'd rehearsed them alone before saying them to me. Then he said the thing that stayed with me long after the conversation ended. "I just feel like I'm evolving," he said, "and you're staying exactly the same." I stared at him for a second. "Are you unhappy?" He looked irritated immediately. "Why does everything have to be dramatic with you? I'm just being honest." Honest. That word people use when they want permission to be cruel. We went to bed without resolving anything. Kai stayed on his phone. The glow from the screen kept flashing across the ceiling in little bursts of light. At one point, I turned slightly and saw a name pop up. Lena. Then another message from the same contact. And another. Compliments. Fire emojis. Something about a shoot. Something about drinks afterward. I didn't say anything. I didn't sleep either. The next morning, Kai kissed my cheek like everything was normal. Hey, he said casually while grabbing coffee. Could you cover the electric bill today? My payment from a campaign got delayed. I paid it. At the time, I still believed we were a couple going through a rough phase. What I didn't understand yet was something much simpler. I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was already being replaced, just not officially. Things didn't explode after that. There was no screaming fight, no confession, no dramatic scene where everything came crashing down at once. Instead, the relationship started eroding quietly. Over the next week, Kai came home later. Not dramatically late, just late enough that dinner plans kept dying without discussion. If I texted asking where he was, the responses were always vague. Networking ran long. Lost track of time. Met some people from a collab. Every explanation had just enough truth in it to make questioning it feel exhausting. Then the comments started coming more often. Kai had a talent for delivering criticism in the most casual tone possible, like he was commenting on the weather. One night, while we were getting ready to go out, he glanced at me and said, "You should think about whitening your teeth." I paused halfway through putting on my coat. What? I'm just saying, he shrugged. Camera lighting picks up everything. Another evening, he tugged lightly on my jacket sleeve. That coat makes you look older. Older. I was 31. Then came, confidence is sexy, right? You don't really project that. He said these things without looking at me, like he was half listening to a podcast while throwing out commentary. Each remark was small, individually, almost deniable, but together they formed a slow drip of doubt. And Kai never yelled. That was the clever part. Yelling would have made the cruelty obvious. Instead, he delivered every criticism like a helpful observation, as if he were simply pointing out things I should already know. One evening, he asked me to help him with a sponsored post. Golden hour. Rooftop. The city skyline behind him glowing in that warm orange light influencers seemed to chase like its religion. I spent nearly 40 minutes taking photos, crouching, standing, adjusting angles, following instructions. No, not like that. It shortens the frame. Hold the phone higher. Make it feel more aspirational. I retook the same shot over and over. When we were finally done, Kai sat down and started reviewing them. His expression turned sour. Ugh, he said. What? I'll have Lena fix these. I paused. Who's Lena? Kai looked at me like I'd asked something obvious. She's a photographer. We've been collaborating. Collaborating. That word again. When did you meet her? I asked. A while ago. He said it casually, then looked at me with faint irritation. Why? No reason, I said. But something in my chest tightened. Later that week, we went to a birthday party for one of Kai's friends. Loud music, crowded apartment, half the room performing for the other half. People filming clips for stories. Conversations that sounded more like networking pitches than friendships. Kai was in his element, laughing loudly, touching people's arms while talking, moving through the room like he belonged to it. Watching him in those spaces always felt strange. At home, he could be cold and dismissive. In public, he was charming. At one point, I was standing near the kitchen when one of his friends leaned against the counter beside me. She had a drink in her hand and the slightly reckless smile of someone already halfway through the night. Kai always upgrades, she joked loudly. A few people nearby laughed. Kai turned his head, still smiling in the attention, then looked directly at me and said, I just don't like settling. The words were delivered lightly, like part of the joke, but the room reacted the way rooms do when something uncomfortable slips into the air. Half laughs, quick glances, someone changing the subject too fast. I waited 1 second for him to clarify, for him to laugh and say he was kidding. He didn't. He just turned back to the conversation like nothing had happened. On the ride home, I finally asked him about it. What did you mean earlier? Kai looked at me briefly from the passenger seat. About what? The upgrade comment. He rolled his eyes immediately. Oh my God, Sienna, you're so sensitive. You know I wasn't talking about you. Then who were you talking about? He shrugged. I don't know. Just people. Just people. That was the explanation. Later that night, lying in bed beside him, I replayed the moment in my head. The laughter. The look he gave me. The casual way he said it. And for the first time, I let myself think something I'd been avoiding for weeks. Kai wasn't pushing me away because he hated me. He was pushing me away because he believed he could do better. And he wanted me to feel that. Not loudly, not directly, but slowly, quietly, like background noise. The breaking point came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Kai was sitting on the couch with his laptop open and his phone balanced on his knee, scrolling through comments, replying to people, fully absorbed in the small universe on his screen. I was at the table going through expenses, numbers, receipts, subscription charges, the slow realization that my checking account felt lighter every month. I took a breath. "Hey," I said calmly, "can we talk about finances for a minute?" Kai didn't look up. "Make it quick." That should have been my signal to stop, to close the laptop, to let the conversation die like so many others had. But something about the numbers in front of me made it impossible to ignore this time. "I've been going through the expenses," I said, "and I realized I'm covering almost everything now." Kai's fingers kept moving across the keyboard. Rent, utilities, groceries, internet, most of the subscriptions too. The typing stopped. He slowly closed his laptop and looked at me like I'd asked the most irritating question imaginable. "Why are you keeping score?" "I'm not. I just need clarity." He laughed, a tired, dismissive sound. "Sienna, this is exactly why you don't understand people in my world." I looked at him. What does that mean? He stood, walked into the kitchen, poured himself water, and leaned against the counter like the conversation already bored him. "You knew who I was when we started dating," he said. There it was, the universal deflection. "You were supportive when my brand was starting, and now suddenly helping me is a burden?" "I never said it was a burden," I said, "but relationships need balance, transparency, some kind of plan." "God," he said, "you make everything sound so transactional." "It's not transactional, it's practical." He rolled his eyes. "You're turning life into spreadsheets again." I held his gaze. "Then explain it to me. What's the plan?" Kai was quiet for a second. Then he said, "It meant nothing." I frowned. "What?" He sighed like I was slow. "Lena," he said, "she was just better at a few things than you." For a moment, I didn't fully understand. Then the words settled. My stomach dropped. "Did you sleep with her?" I asked. Kai rolled his eyes. "Why does it always go there with you?" That wasn't a no. He waved one hand dismissively. "She gets me more creatively. She understands the social side of things. She doesn't make everything about bills and schedules." Silence stretched between us. Then he added, almost kindly, "You should be secure enough not to feel threatened." And just like that, something inside me went very quiet. Not angry. Not explosive. Just quiet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just said, "Then let her be better at paying your bills too." Kai froze. For the first time in months, he looked genuinely confused, like he was waiting for a punchline that never came. "Are you serious right now?" he asked. I nodded. Not dramatically. Not smugly. "Just done." Kai laughed. But the sound came out sharper than before. "Wow," he said. "So you're punishing me now?" "No," I replied. "I'm setting boundaries." He scoffed. "You're being emotional." That word again. Emotional. Kai's favorite way of dismissing anything he didn't want to take responsibility for. "I'm going for a walk," I said. "I need some air." He waved a hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic." I grabbed my jacket anyway. Outside, the evening air was cooler than I expected. The city noise felt distant, like everything around me had slowed down. I walked without really thinking, just moving. Halfway down the block, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Kai. It was my boss. "Hey," he said when I answered. "Have you had time to think about the promotion?" "Right, the offer letter." The decision I'd been avoiding, while trying to keep my relationship from collapsing. "We need an answer by Monday," he continued. "The relocation would be temporary at first, but the role is bigger, a lot more responsibility." Then he said something that stuck with me. "This is one of those opportunities people regret passing up." When the call ended, I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment watching traffic pass. Cars, people walking dogs, the quiet hum of the city continuing like nothing had changed. But something had. When I got back to the apartment, the door was unlocked. Music was playing inside. Kai stood in front of the hallway mirror, with his ring light turned on, phone raised, recording a story. He saw me through the screen and mouthed, "1 second." I waited. He finished filming, reviewed the clip, smiled slightly at himself, then turned toward me. "So," he said casually, "are you done sulking?" That was the moment I understood something important. Kai wasn't afraid of losing me. He was annoyed that I wasn't behaving predictably. I studied him for a second. Then I asked, "If I stopped paying for things tomorrow, what would happen?" He frowned. "Why would you do that?" "I'm asking hypothetically." Kai crossed his arms. "You wouldn't." "Why not?" "Because you're not that kind of woman." The sentence landed harder than he realized. Because suddenly I understood exactly how he saw me. Not as a partner, not even as a girlfriend. As infrastructure. Something stable. Something reliable. Something that simply existed so everything else in his life could run smoothly. That night, after Kai fell asleep, I opened my laptop. The promotion email was still there. Unread messages from HR. Relocation details. Travel timelines. Then I opened something else. Our lease agreement. Month to month. 30 days notice. Technically, the apartment belonged to both of us in practice, but the paperwork flowed through my account with the property manager. The utilities did too. I read through everything slowly. Strangely, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt calm. The kind of calm that only shows up when a decision has already been made somewhere deep inside you. By morning, Kai was still asleep, and I already knew what I was going to do. I didn't tell him right away. For the next few days, nothing on the surface seemed different. I went to work. I came home. I answered his comments with neutral responses. No arguments. No emotional speeches. Just distance. Kai noticed it almost immediately. "You're being weird," he said one night while scrolling through comments under one of his posts. "Weird how?" I asked without looking up from my laptop. "You're quiet." "I'm working." He watched me for a moment, then shrugged. "Just don't get stuck in your head," he said. "That's when you spiral." 2 days later, I gave my boss my answer. Yes, I'd take the promotion. Once I said it out loud, everything started moving quickly. HR sent relocation timelines, temporary housing information, my new start date. It felt strange how fast life reorganized itself once a decision had been made. That same afternoon, I emailed the property manager. 30 days notice. Clean. Legal. Simple. After that, I started detaching everything else. Utilities. Internet. Subscriptions. Anything tied to my accounts. I didn't tell Kai. Not yet. Part of me wanted to see how long things would stay comfortable for him before he noticed the ground shifting. The first sign came 3 days later. Kai walked into the kitchen while I was making coffee. "Did you forget to reorder groceries?" he asked. "No," I said. "I didn't." He blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means I didn't reorder." "So, are you going to?" "No." Kai stared at me. "Sienna, what is this?" I took a sip of coffee. "You said Lena was better at a few things," I said calmly. "I figured this was a good time to stop competing." Kai laughed, but the sound felt thin. "You're being petty." "I'm being consistent." That evening, he ordered takeout. On his card. I heard him sigh quietly when the total appeared. The next morning, he walked into the kitchen earlier than usual. "Did you already pay next month's rent?" he asked. I shook my head. "I gave notice on the apartment." His head snapped up. "You can't just do that. We live here." "For now," I replied. For the first time since I'd known him, Kai looked genuinely unsettled. "You're overreacting," he said, to one conversation. "One conversation?" I repeated. "You know what I mean," he said quickly. "You're letting your ego get bruised, and now you're trying to prove something." I watched him for a moment. Then I asked quietly, "If I hadn't overheard you comparing me to Lena, would you have told me?" Kai hesitated. The pause lasted less than 2 seconds. But it was enough. He looked away first. "You're really going to throw away 2 years over jealousy?" he asked. "This isn't about jealousy," I said. "Then what is it about?" "It's about realizing I'm optional to you as a person, but essential as a resource." His expression hardened. "That's unfair." "Is it?" "When was the last time you planned something for us?" No answer. "When was the last time you asked how my day was without needing something?" Silence. Kai pushed away from the counter abruptly. "This is exhausting," he said. "You're rewriting history." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally reading it clearly." That night we slept in the same bed, but the distance between us felt enormous. Kai lay facing the wall, his phone screen glowing in the dark. Typing. Messaging. Probably explaining the situation to someone, or preparing a replacement plan. I didn't ask. The next morning I started packing. Not dramatically, just quietly. Clothes, documents, my laptop, a few personal things that mattered. Kai stood in the doorway watching me. "You think you're winning," he said. "This isn't a competition," I replied. "You'll regret this." "I don't think so." "You don't just walk away from someone like me." That sentence revealed more about him than anything else he'd said. Someone like him. I picked up my keys. "I'm not walking away from you," I said. "I'm walking toward myself." Kai scoffed, but this time there was something else behind it. Fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing the stability he had quietly built his life on. When I reached the door, his voice cracked slightly. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked at him for a moment. "You said it yourself," I replied. "She was better at a few things than me." I opened the door. "Let her be better at this too." Then I walked out. I didn't look back.